Well, hey there team, welcome back to the channel and welcome to Worth It Then Worth It Now, a segment we run on this channel where we go back to games of yesteryear, at least 12 months old, and generally speaking not exceptionally contemporary, but it's an opportunity for me to shout out games out of season that I think are quite awesome and deserve a bit of a second look, and I try and line it up with a sale on Steam if possible. And so today we're having a look at Gears Tactics, which I didn't actually own on Steam, so I've picked it up for this, and then I got a billion achievements because I must have played it on like a Game Pass or an Xbox version, something like that. But anyway, it's good to come back to it because I really like this game. And yes, just in case it's not clear, it is on sale. I think it's about 60, 70%, something like that off at the time of this recording. So for some reason you missed this because it's still high profile. It's a AAA franchise, but arguably a spin-off, so there's a possible chance that you're like confused what is going on here. Well, it is a Gears of War game, but similar to something like Halo Wars, for example. Actually, that's a great comparison, even though that's more RTS and this is more XCOM. Well, this is in fact a turn-based strategy, team management, in the vein of something like the XCOM games. But it's all set in the Gears universe. In fact, it's set right after E-Day. I'm actually a really big fan of Gears of War, but because there hasn't been much going on about it recently, I haven't had much cause to talk about it or play it, but I, kind of grew up playing those games, or at least it was a big part of my, God, I have to think about it now, teens, 20s? Something like that, young adulthood. Yeah, I liked it all, big machismo and fighting these monsters that are coming out of the ground that apparently been there forever. It's a sort of Earth setting. It's not Earth, but it is in every way, basically. These caricature brick shithouse dudes that are humongous, and then they put armor on top of them, and I think it's great. It's got its own unique direction. The Gears games have always been a bit of the tip of the spear when it came to the modern wave of muddy, dirty visuals, but there is a beauty in there. So yeah, it's an XCOM-like game. A bit more streamlined, I suppose you could say, made with the view to use controller. It is an Xbox party title. I haven't given it a go with thumbsticks, but I can only assume it would work just fine. There's a sort of drag out from your guys to move, but from a PC perspective, it works flawlessly. It's great. In fact, it's not just a reskin of the XCOM games. Like I said, there's a streamlining to it. There's a AAA-ification, a console-ification, I suppose you could call it. Dumbing down maybe, but the truth is they've gone in a more run and gun combo chain direction. There's some inspired and original stuff here that you don't see in the XCOM games, and in other games I've seen them ape this. So it's carved out its own legacy in its own way. So just from the top down, there's no base management. There is management between missions of managing your dudes, and one of the really neat tricks is that they have story narrative campaign at the center of it. And I've talked about this before. You generally, your XCOM games are a bit more sandpit. They're a bit bigger. They still do have a narrative, but in a way it almost runs backseat to the gameplay core and just managing your forces and ramping up. So some extreme examples of the really narrative heavy stuff we've looked at recently on the main channel, like Chains of Freedom, and even Showgunners back in the day. If you've never seen those, check them out. This leans a little bit towards that. So this has cinematic cutscenes and a narrative and a through line, which I won't get into, I'll let it stand on its own 2 feet, but it's fine. It's carrot on a stick, it does its thing. But it all seems to be in the same engine that the actual third-person Gears games is in. So uniquely, when they come in for the cutscenes and the close-up shots, it looks like $1 million. It looks like a Gears of War game, which is something you don't get from this sort of genre usually. Even with the modern XCOM games, even when they came out, the character models look rough because it's about rendering larger environments, and it's pretty cool that they've managed to do everything, at least it looks like in the same engine with the same assets. So that's how it seems. So yeah, much more narrative heavy, but what I was getting at is you have set characters because of the narrative, hero characters, right? Gabe and Sid's mustache. And so I'm pretty sure if they go down or if they die, that's game over. They have that main character condition. But you also have your little sidekicks that you pick up through side missions, etc., and they'll be randomly assigned, you know, a class. Maybe they're a machine gunner with a mulcher, and you know, it randoms up their head. And I don't think it does much with their armor, but I've been playing randomly shuffling up their armor to distinguish them all apart, and I like that. That's one of the best parts, again, to compare it to XCOM, because that's the touchstone. That's why most people would be interested in this and probably even looking at this video in the first place. And, you know, if you're newish to all this isn't a bad first game, to be honest, as far as baby's first XCOM. This is a pretty good on-ramp. But generally, the XCOM appeal is that you do get these random troopers, random names, random heads, all that sort of stuff. They're just nobodies. They're rookies that start off, but through the course of earning their stripes, they build a story that you become invested in. And that's why when inevitably they get killed by an unfair blast towards the finale or something like that, it rocks you, you know? They're not protected by plot armor or anything like that. They're just, you know, the little trooper that could, and you watch their career from both highs and lows. So this walks the tightrope of having both. You have main characters split into their own category, and you have your little randoms earning their way up and winning your heart as they distinguish themselves over the course of the battles. So that's all there, and the management of that's there, and it's good enough, it's robust enough, but it's nothing like, you know, world overview map, massive amounts of side quests, ant farm management, base management. None of that's there, right? It's main mission, a couple of side missions, it's about it. And that's all it needs to be. It's a good scope and it sticks to it. Something I talk about all the time. Developers, big and small, need to get better project scope and project management. They need to understand how to take an appropriate bite of the pie and master that, as opposed to destroy their project with project creep, which every second studio does these days. So the cool standout that really distinguishes this game from your other XCOM type games, and like I said, it has been aped in other games since this came out, is this combo chaining sort of mentality. And that ties back in a way to the core of the Gears games, right? You've heavily incentivized, if only because it's fucking cool, to, you know, chainsaw these dudes in half, and as they added retro lances and stab them with that, and basically doing these set piece executions, and they've made that a chunk of the core loop in this. So if you do knock an enemy down and they're in that downed state, instead of just shooting them from a distance, what you want to do is try and execute them in melee, you know, chainsaw them in all bloody glory, it zooms in for it. But by doing that, the character that does that essentially triggers a combo event where every other teammate, and I think you can have like 5 or something like that, they all get action points as well. So you, by doing an execution, you're going to generate 4, albeit 1 per 1 per 1, right? So if you can get out there with 2, maybe it costs 2 move to send one guy out to chainsaw him, it's absolutely worth it. And then in turn, someone might be able to knock down another dude and you might be able to execute him. And so this thunder running, this rolling momentum, this combo chaining, forward pumping is really unusual. And it's not something you would see in an XCOM type game normally. And it gives this a very different flavor and a different mouthfeel. So even if you're not a Gears fan, but you're a fan of the space of XCOM, you'd be doing yourself a disservice to sleep on this. You should absolutely check it out, if only for the curiosity of the hobby, specifically within that genre. And the enemy are great. They're very clever at zoning you with Overwatch. Overwatch is a big thing in this because you can shoot as much as you have action points. Ordinarily in these sort of games, it's 1 shot per round because, let's be honest, that's how you project power, by shooting the enemy, obviously, but it's a very powerful tool and it's very limited usually. Not in this. If you've got bloody 4 action points, you can shoot 4 times as long as they're in range, as long as you're landing the hits, as long as you've got ammo. So it really encourages just this bullet spray against the horde, and there are enemies that you'll have to do that against. And as such, you have Overwatch systems that your dude will just hold that arc and he will just keep shooting things that go into it until he runs out of ammo. And then if you get all sorts of combos and that maybe reload ammo, you can do all sorts of wild stuff. But it's very frenetic and shooting heavy, and the enemy will do the same thing. They will Overwatch you and you have to try and interrupt them with your pistol to knock them out of Overwatch. But that's a big favorite of those. If they have the move speed available, and one of your dudes is out of position, they will move, they will zone him, they will lock him down so that if he moves, he gets shot immediately. And then that's on you to sort of chess piece and figure out how you're going to get another dude to cancel the enemy's overwatch to free up your guy, or you're just going to move through it and take the hit. Anyway, obviously I'm quite a fan. I enjoy all the characters, well, most of the characters. There's a bloody writer self-insert civilian Sheila that just, the only word in her vocabulary is fascist. And look, I get it. You could probably explore the nuance, honestly, of the COG soldier force without me going into it. You know, it's essentially a pretty standover iron fist military that you represent, but it's because we're in trying times. So that's a bit weak. And looking at the way a lot of the writing is in current day, years later, it's funny looking at it retroactively when you can see some of this shit starting to sneak in. But honestly, it's not enough to really rock my world because the game's that good, right? We can skip cutscenes if you really have to. And I'm not telling anyone to go buy it at full price. Again, pick it up on sale. So yeah, unique, doing its own thing, and in a way almost tragic, right? Because this is AAA as anything. It was an Xbox funded IP, an Xbox original IP, and the whole thing, it's not just, you know, Gears 7, 8, 9, 10. It's actually something really original and interesting, and they stuck the landing in every way. And I kind of wish they just do more stuff like this, more original, well, not IP, but original games, spin-offs, etc. Anyway, team, check it out yourself. Might just leave it there for the time being, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.